welcome to a special recording of the Baxter Story FYI podcast. It's a podcast that's really here to talk about topics that are really important, and hopefully today we're going to give you some food for thought. I'm really excited to have some brilliant guests with me today. So first of all, we've got Charlotte. Charlotte is really on a mission to make sure the workplace can be as healthy and as happy as it possibly can be. Andy, who is our head of partnerships and community, who does everything with purpose. Andy is also intrinsically linked to our wellbeing program at Baxter Story and is going to give us some fantastic insight in terms of food. And then we've got chef extraordinaire Kirk Haworth, who is with us today. You've all probably recently seen Kirk be crowned Champion of Champions on Great British Menu. Kirk has been one of our original chef partners at Baxter Story and has been a huge advocate in terms of changing mindset around food. So it is Mental Health Awareness Week today, and so therefore there's a bit of theme in terms of how we're going to talk through food. And I'm really excited that I think we're going to bring together 3 different viewpoints, and we're going to talk about expertise and also some lived experiences. So without further ado, let's kick this off. Andy, one of the biggest things that you do on the day-to-day is advocate for food and mood. And I'm just really keen for you to kind of give us some insight in terms of how the two are intrinsically linked.
Yes, thank you. Nice to be here. Well, food and mood, if I give you a quick brief history on it. 2 years ago, myself and the nutritionist were at a science lab and presented to 6 people, and they were all very miserable. We had lovely food there. They didn't want to try asparagus. They weren't interested at all. So we had some jokes with them. We thought, hang on a minute, we've got something here. We talked about asparagus, why your pea smells, because some people are put off by that. Don't be put off, it's natural, it's just going through your system, it's fine. They started laughing. From that moment on, we kind of found in food and mood. We went on a bit of a tour with it. We went to a lot of our businesses in Baxter Story. And the idea is it's a 1-hour session, basically, to talk about everything food and how your mood can change. And basically set up to educate and excite our teams, but it moved into the client side, which is great, and teaching people about good wellbeing and sustainable nutrition. So it started 2 years ago. It's right across our business now. You might even see it here at PwC, across your salad bars, or if it's not here yet, it's on its way. So yeah, for me, I'm not going to go too personally, but for me, good nutrition starts when you get consistent. And I think for me, and we'll go into that later, but it's really important you get consistent and try things. And that's the bit about try things, keep moving, keep trying things. So yeah.
And how much can food affect your mood? Is it just a wild statement or is it a real true?
Massively. So if I go out now and I eat, a beautiful bowl of pickled carrots, I've got pickled carrots tonight. A bowl of pickled carrots, some beetroot, some cucumber, lovely tasting stuff, some seasoned asparagus, whatever it might be. If I'm committed, I'll eat that and I'll enjoy every bit of it. Mm-hmm. But if I can go and take a packet of biscuits or some chocolate or something really, really high in sugar, my mood's going to fluctuate. It's going to fluctuate like crazy. And I'd always say this, try and go for something that's there's nothing wrong with sugar, but try and go for something that's a little bit more refreshing, light tasting. So when you eat it, you don't feel heavy. Mm. That's the whole idea. When you try the food and mood tour, I know we've done a few here. When you eat that bowl of salad that we give you, you feel great after it. You walk away in the afternoon thinking, you know what? That's really cool. I love that. It's light. I don't feel, my mood hasn't changed. Probably a little bit better than it was before I started eating salad. So yeah.
It's really interesting. I've actually learned about food hangovers lately, and I didn't, everybody knows what a traditional hangover is after you've had a few booze-filled hours, but actually I've learned how much you can get a food hangover. And I definitely woke up a few times. Has anybody else experienced that?
Yeah, for sure. In my journey, I used to journal after I ate things, and I would journal how I felt the next day or after I ate it, and that's how I started to basically work out about myself. But people say the gut's the second brain. I believe it's the first brain, really. And if we look at things like headaches, leg pain, things like that, we actually look in the wrong places. We actually look in the head or we look in the legs, but actually if we look to the gut, that can be alleviated by what we put in our gut. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing and a very kind of deep-rooted thing when we look at the gut as a whole, because if we look at it on the body, it's the center of our body, right? So when we look at it at that level, it's radiating everywhere around us. So it has direct, there's no doubt about it has direct effect to our mood, for sure. You know, if you eat a Domino's pizza 2 nights in a row and go to bed the next day and wake up,
you're going to feel horrendous.
You're not going to feel, you know, there are some people out there that can get away with it and feel all right. But when we look at like mental health, you know, there's definitely a massive connection to that. And I think we just need to, I think it's the way we speak about these things that we make change, and not by preaching about it. It's like, I always say, like, be the light. So the way you act, the way you move, the way you speak, the way you eat, all these things, allow your actions to do the talking. It's like with my food, I don't preach to people what they should be doing or what they should eat. I'm just trying to make my food exciting and delicious, so that it makes them think, oh, actually, this is really delicious, this is exciting. So then that's like a silent message. And I think it's the same with always on an individual level, whether it's in a family or them sort of things, the way we go about our daily life, like we talked about consistency. If you consistently do something over an amount of time, people will start noticing in your family, if it's your sister, that, oh, they'll notice that, and then they'll see, oh, you look and you're thriving more within yourself, and then they might start to take little action themselves.
I think something that we were talking about before we kind of kicked off recording the podcast was actually people's expectation of, I've done it for 2 days, why don't I feel the difference? And actually, so how long do you need to do something in order for the gut to respond? Yeah,
I mean, I don't know exactly, but I always say, like, with all my health stuff, anything I used to try, and I've done so many things even out of that, work with naturopaths and holistic medicines, all this, I always did 3 months minimum, and then see. And you have to record these things because you forget, and, you know, have a little journal with you and just write down. I used to mark out of 10 how I felt every day. So then I would look then the week back, and if it would go from a 6 to a 7 or a 5 to a 3 in my pain, then I could go, okay, and I would write underneath what I ate that day. So then I could directly link it to those things.
But it takes a little bit of time to work out what is a 3, what's a 5, what's a 10.
And a lot of discipline as well, because actually you've got to be so disciplined to do that and then wait for the sustained kind of improvement. And I find that the food and my mood is very cyclical and intertwined. So the trouble is when I'm more stressed and I don't feel great, I eat worse food. And then actually that doesn't help, and I almost use it to kind of numb myself in the evenings when I just need to chill out and slow my brain. If I'm feeling great, I'll reach for the healthier food. I'll take the time. I'll spend, that lovely hour in the morning eating a lovely nutritious breakfast. But when I'm in my worst times and my brain's going 100 million miles an hour and I'm thinking of all the things, I almost struggle to eat the good food.
Yeah.
So
it's everybody does.
A lot of discipline to say, Charlotte, don't go for your gut feeling to say, grab a sausage roll, grab something that's really quick and carby. It's going, what's going to help you, what's going to make you feel better and sleep better. My sleep's terrible when I've had that sugary, fatty kind of carby food and a glass of red wine, and I'm like, instantly feel better for a moment, feel terrible throughout the night and the next morning.
And that is really sort of saying the gut is clearly something there's an access to making sure that you're looking after yourself as well.
Yes, I mean, I've added on to that bit. I'm not going to get too much detail, but for 3 weeks now, I've been going through the process, resetting my body, and the difference in my gut is massive.
How are you doing that, Andy?
Going to now, so basically, I started fasting 3 weeks ago, so I'm literally doing 1 meal a day, and I'm incorporating, vegetables, grains, nuts, pulses, herbs, spices. You can have chocolate in there if you want it. It's on there for the 30 times a week. But I have 1 meal a day, and I have it every normally about 5:30, 7 o'clock at night. So it varies between 23 and 24-hour fast. Now, it sounds crazy, but the early days were really tough because you're detoxing. Your body goes into that ketosis stage where you detox from your sugar, the gluten, whatever's in your system, and those are the hardest days. But when I got through that, it literally, I feel totally different. My mood has improved massively. I used to be so grumpy because I wasn't happy, so I might have been stress eating, whatever I was doing. But now, going through the process, the discipline is massive. Kirk, you mentioned, I keep a journal of everything. How many times I go to the toilet, exactly what I've eaten, the amount of calories roughly that I think is in there, any medicine I've taken, how did I sleep? Did I enjoy that meet? Did I enjoy this podcast today? Because I did that. It's off the chart. And then I collate that information for 2 months. I'm doing that for 2 months, and then I'm seeing where I'm going. But the benefit, not just weight-wise, but the general feeling of my body's peaceful. I feel very quiet. I feel calm. and I enjoy my food. So that big bowl of food I mentioned earlier, I'm dreaming about pickled courgettes, because I know tonight it's all prepped, ready to go. I'm excited by it, but I'll take half an hour to eat that bowl of food. I will take my time. So, I'll chew the food, which again, gut health, digestive. If you chew your food, you're helping your gut. Chew it as many times as you can. And then I just sit there and enjoy it. It's quite a ceremonial process. You're sitting there and you're the most luckiest person in the world with a bowl of vegetables and grains, but you fully embrace and enjoy it because you know it's doing you good.
Yeah.
And I actually like the taste of carrots again, because you kind of go off it. When I go off stuff, I go off it really badly.
I love you taking the time. So it's just in terms of something that, I had to take a couple of weeks off last year, just pretty burnt out from some intense projects. And I came back to work, and one of the most, it was an amazing kind of realization for me. My team watched me eat a sandwich and have a glass of water. And they all both looked at me in shock. And I was like, what do you mean? They said, I've never seen you sit and eat and finish something in one go. And I was like, I eat food all day, all the time. But what I didn't realize, it can take me 2 hours to eat my breakfast, because I'll have a little bit and I'll get distracted, and I'll have a little bit and I'll go off and talk to that person. When I'm calm and when actually I take the time to eat and enjoy it and think about what I've prepped, it feels so different. And it can be a delicious like chicken burger, and it can be something that you're like, wow, that was a real treat, as long as it's good food and good ingredients there. But ultimately, what I'd love to in the workplace is really building that culture that we get away from the mainline coffee, grab a quick biscuit, have a chocolate bar in the afternoon when you just need quick energy, and us building the time to sit and have breakfast, sit and have lunch together.
I think there's an opportunity to learn from lots of cultures. If you look at fika culture, if you look at the whole breaking bread culture, as a nation, we're probably time poor and always in a hurry to do something else. And actually what we're not learning is actually that time is so valuable for more than one reason in terms of nourishment. We all need calories in order to be able to continue, but actually how we behave with our food during those times can really affect our well-being as well.
I'm really encouraging everyone to make it a non-negotiable, to really block time out in your diary to say, this is where I'm going to eat, hydrate, have the water and value that. And I've really, really seen a change I've been here for 18 years. So I've seen PwC go through an absolute transformation in the way that we treat mental health. Over those 18 years, I've had some really difficult experiences and had to take some serious time out. And at that point, it was complete stigma. There was no talking about it. It was, don't talk to Charlotte. She's just not here. Now, well, the joy for me is being able to do things like this, raise the awareness, say it's more than okay to talk about our mental health, because it's all on a spectrum. We've all got mental health. It's either good or it's bad. And I think the rhetoric used to be mental health is only bad mental health.
I suppose what connects all of us sat in the room today is actually workplace food experiences. And, if I think of some statistics, so Office of National Statistics said a few years ago that 17.9 million days are lost due to sickness every single year. But actually, quite scarily, 71% of people don't feel comfortable about having a conversation about mental health within the workspace as well. And for me, there's an absolute there's got to be a direct correlation. As I think we'll all sit here and say the mental health conversation has definitely come forward, and the stigma is less so than what it used to be, which says actually workspaces have a really important part to play in how they curate their environment. So Charlotte, actually, as a PwC, you are the workspace person on this podcast at the moment. How have you physically seen the spaces at PwC change to kind of help facilitate better well-being for your team members?
Oh, it's become an intrinsic part of the design. So I've actually had the joy of being part of many of the design and sort of construction projects along the years. And now our teams will absolutely think of the environment about how can you be your best self. We've got quiet areas, we've got more vibrant areas, we've got areas where people will come together, dine, break out together. But we're really valuing, if you need that quiet space, if actually it's more of a green environment, if it is escaping to our edible garden, which we've just gone and had a look at. Now, for me, it was championing having those spaces where you can take a break from what's a really, vibrant but intense world that we work in. And everything has to be done very fast. It's very important, but it's actually really important to remember that we're all really human beings and we can't operate as robots. To be high performers, and that's, a big thing for us is being high performers, all of us. How can we do that without going and having an amazing salad bowl or having birch muesli for breakfast? Or, it's such a brilliant part if we can all make sure that we take a break for each other. Because I think my team take care of me and say, do you think maybe you should take a break now? I'm like, okay. But if we do that for each other and say, should we go to lunch together? Then actually we all create this culture where the magic will happen.
I think we've got different generations coming through now, actually. And I think of like the millennial, the baby boomer, I'm the millennial, we all kind of live a certain way. And actually we've got generations now that are forcing us to think differently as well. Maybe exploring that in terms of what the impact that we're seeing in those different generations and what they're demanding from a wellbeing perspective.
Yeah, of course. I think in terms of, let's take chefs, for instance. I mean, from when I started training when I was 16 to now I'm 36, seeing the change in that, in the younger generation now, the 20-year-olds coming through that want to cook to when I was 20. And the difference is huge, but it's not about, I hear it a lot. And, I've heard other chefs say, I didn't get that, or it wasn't, I just had to get on with it. And it's like, no, we have to change. We have to be the change makers. We have to be the ones that, I'm always thinking what it's going to be like in 10 years. What can I do? I'm opening a restaurant in a month and I'm putting around a wellness package for all my staff. So we will have to do certain things at certain times, and that's it. It's like we'll have to do a sound meditation twice a week. We'll have to do this. I'm putting in a 15-minute visualization course before every service. We'll all sit down and we'll visualize and we'll do gratitude. And then it's like, how do we make change? We have to be the light. So we're like, that's how we do it.
That's amazing.
And then it moves forward.
How can we bring that into our kitchens? I think there's a lot too.
Yeah.
What's the food that actually chefs tend to eat, or when do you guys eat?
Yeah.
Actually in the kitchen, you're cooking. Our teams are cooking beautiful food for our clients, for our people. But actually, I think a huge important thing for us as a partnership is saying, what are we doing for our teams? Because if they're feeling great, if they're actually well, if they're being able to high perform and eat the great food that they're having, surely that's so important to the dishes they're creating.
I think it comes down to environment as well. It's not always about the food, it's about the environment they're working in, because Kirk said, all those years, I'm a bit older than everyone else, but all those years ago, it was terrible. We know that, but that's the kitchen, but that's across any sector, whatever work we do. But I think now what you're seeing is more diverse, more inclusive, environments need to be better. And I think that's what we need to look at. The kitchens, for example, is in a good working order, and there's harmony in that kitchen. Chefs are happy, teams are happy because they know they've got a great environment to work in. So that's really important to me. It's not always about the food. Food plays a massive part, but I think, get the environment right, create the culture at the beginning of the journey, which is amazing. Create that culture that, yes, we will make time, because it's too easy to say, we're going to have a break. People don't do it. You need to start somewhere, embed it, and that culture will follow. It will happen. But you need to be sometimes you need to be quite, not tough of it, but you really need to throw in.
It needs discipline.
It needs discipline again, we mentioned earlier on. You've got, otherwise, you won't do it 3 or 5 times. You might do it once a week. You might do whatever. So I think just start from the basics. We always talk about hydration and stuff like that. Start from the very basics. Make sure they've got the basic needs to work in the environment they're in. And that includes front house, back house, wherever we're talking about. It's just really important to get that right for me. Because I've worked in many, many operations and over the years and seen some terrible ones, but we've moved on. We're thinking about them now. The whole kind of setup of an office now is more, there's plants everywhere. So it's kind of, the idea is it's making it more, it's nice to come to work.
Well, I used to get told when a particular role that I had, I was literally told, I don't want somebody who goes to the gym, because they wanted me to be completely wedded to the work, to the project, to everything. And don't get me wrong, we were talking about what it's like to grow up in your career and how much you can put in that extra time and commitment, and actually there's a real balance between the wellness, but actually investing in your career. And for me, I think I wouldn't have got to where I am if I hadn't put in all of that passion and commitment. But now it's a huge part for me to start my day with exercise, with the right food, and really give myself my best part of my day. That's not selfish. It means I come to work as my best person, Whereas I used to completely reverse that and be at work as early as I could, eat rubbish food, not sleep.
Making sure everyone else is all right.
Yeah, I made sure every project was delivered, every work piece was done, and then I was kind of dying a death secretly at home.
There's some real interesting kind of pieces in there. I think movement is one. So we know that movement is the mental health awareness theme for this year, which is really exciting. And Charlotte, I'm going to ask you in a second about how PwC are probably taking that in a different angle. But actually physical movement itself, in the industries that we live, working in facilities or working in the kitchens, etc., you're on your feet a lot, etc. But that also is one sort of type of movement. What else should people be doing to make sure movement forms part of their day, to make sure that they're keeping themselves to be as best as they can?
Things on top of movement, as well as movement. I honestly think I think Andy talked about fasting, and what's that? He's basically saying that it's give him a lot of gratitude, because when he gets to that food, he's grateful because he's more conscious, because he's realised actually how lucky he is to get to that food because he's actually waited. And I think gratitude is such a big one. For me, mental health, I used to write, when I was very sick, I used to write, because especially when you feel ill all the time, it's so easy to be in a hole where it's not fair, why me? So I used to write 5 things on my wardrobe before I went to sleep at night. And that could just be, I've got a warm bed. If we look at the world now, we are so lucky that we have a warm bed at night. We get to drink water. We have a shower, right? And we're so consumer driven, and especially if we're ambitious, we always want more. We always want the next thing. And we need to just rein it back in and go, actually, I'm so lucky. I think for mental health, that with exercise is one of the best things, I would say.
And I think you want to do it, don't you? So you mentioned consistency and gratitude. You feel you want to do the exercise because you've been good to yourself, and being good to yourself, it's difficult to do. But when you find that discipline and you appreciate what you've got, you'll find yourself have that extra energy. You'll find the extra energy to, I'm just going to go for a half an hour walk or something. What you don't want to do is put pressure on people, because nobody likes to be told what to do, because that puts extra pressure on them and it could send them the opposite way. What you want to try and do is just encourage simplicity. And I don't think it is about movement, I get it, but sometimes it's your mindset. If you're happy in your mindset, you'll get out of it what you need to get out of. And I think for me personally, I have to stick to that. I have to be disciplined on it, and I have to cut other things out of my life because I'm grateful for what I've got. But if I want to stay on this journey and keep going and flourishing, I will make some big decisions in terms of diet and stuff like that, and I'll still be happy because I know where it takes me. I know the road I'm on at the moment. When you go on that journey, you'll find a happy place, and that gives you the confidence to kick on with whatever else comes in. Just find a starting point. I always say this: start with water, and then you move on from there. So it all kinds of interlinked, isn't it? The food and the water. We've talked about that, but it's a wonderful journey to go on. It's a wonderful journey to go on, but you've got you just it's the pressure point. Just don't put pressure on yourself. Just start somewhere.
Don't put pressure on yourself, because it's not about just other people. But I got into a phase because I picked up strength training about a year ago. Never done it before and didn't think I was scared of the gym. Genuinely didn't know what to do.
Quite an intimidating experience.
It really was. Now I love it. It's 1 hour. I can't think of anything else because it's really hard. But also I had to find the balance between doing it 6 days a week and jogging to the gym and jogging back. And I was in bed by 7:30. I was exhausted. And I had to be really kind to myself and say, I'm not an athlete, never going to be an athlete. I just need to go 4 times a week and maybe jog on a Sunday and, and do it within balance of all the other things that fit into my life. But I am happiest when my life is simple, when I've got the really simple things that I can go for a walk, have the time. But movement also helps with my stress hugely. And last night I went out for a run. So it was just all in my head and things were going around, and I was thinking about today and I was like, I want it to be amazing. I was like, just get my trainers on, out the door. And I find I can work through my anxiety through the steps. Yeah. And when I can push myself with my running, it genuinely physically comes out of me, and my thoughts all kind of seems to realign, and they're not all
The rules has definitely changed though, because I think that quite often in a workspace environment, you can expect that you've got to sit at a desk for 9 hours a day and that's it. And you've got to be creative and come up with everything. And I think there's a permission now that's just naturally granted to say, actually, just go get up and do that walk, have that agility, because actually not everybody works and is different. And so therefore it's really important that we create that space. I suppose my question to yourselves is, I know that one of the things that you created was kitchen talks as a way in which you encourage conversations around these kind of things. Can you just give us a bit of insight into that and the difference that's made within the workspace?
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of leads on to that, our different look at movement as the theme. So what we want to create is a movement around mental health and using that to open up the conversations. And as much as we're talking about how can we improve our mental health and how can food feature in that and all the great habits, we really want to create a movement that actually it's okay to talk about bad mental health. We've done a series of videos in my department with our leadership. So I do think it has to come from the top. We are a hierarchical organisation. And once you've got your leaders speaking out and sharing their mental health journeys, it does make it okay for others to talk about it. So we've really been emphasising people sharing their stories. Just as part of who they are. It doesn't have to be that you're good, bad, or different. You can absolutely be a whole person and have that, those ebbs and flows. Throughout your day, you might have a bad moment. The movement for us is very much around opening up those conversations. But Kitchen Table Talks was really looking at food as an enabler for conversations. So the premise is around you come together and make bread. So Andy and I have done a Kitchen Table Talks together, and we did it for our leadership team. The whole idea is to take them out of that busy workplace, get your hands in the flour, just make a simple bread together. It's really funny watching people do it well, not do it well, kind of get competitive over it.
Feel uncomfortable as well.
They get really competitive about, I want my bread to be the best bread. And what I will do is weave in little bits about my story and start talking about mental health, and you get the uncomfortable laughs and some of the jokes, and it's all non-alcoholic as well. So I'm very adamant that it's all non-alcoholic for the benefits that that will have for our mental health, about cutting out or cutting down. And then we go into a room and have a family-style sharing meal. And that, sitting around a family table, big bowls of delicious food, very simple, nutritious, nothing fancy. I love a beautiful fancy plate of food, but ultimately a big pie, a big kind of salad bowl, or, it's just passing it from person to person. Deliberately, you've got to ask someone, can you pass me that? Or can you pass me the butter? Or can you pass me? Then you just get this gentle element of people start opening up. And I think, when you sat around your kitchen table with your family, or, Christmas or something else, with those celebrations, that's when you start to get this real joy of people going, oh, I've got this hobby, or learning things about each other. I did it with a group of our engineers. Like, just to be, not to be cliched, but not the typical group of people to start talking about their feelings. Honestly, once it really got into it, they learned things about each other that you would never imagine would come up. That was purely food as an enabler for the conversation.
Is so powerful. And actually, Kirk, if I think about plates being plant-based, you must get people turn up sometimes not having any idea what they're turning up to and potentially expecting a steak dinner, etc. And then they have to go on this whole learning journey of food with what you do.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that? And then, what are some people's reactions around that?
Yeah, a lot, because like I spoke before, I don't really like the kind of preachiness of labels, especially with food. I want my food to be inclusive to everyone, and food is so personal. So, 80% of people that actually come to plates eat meat and fish. And that's, that's great. I'm hopefully just showing them or enlightening them that they could eat maybe, a little bit of extra veg on the weekend, and cut down a little bit on the meat and fish if that's, So for me, it's like, it's interesting when, say, like a partner brings their wife who's veggie, and the husband's a big like bodybuilder, and he's kind of just brought her he's basically just booked for her. And then at the end, he's almost like hugging me going, I never thought I could be full, like I never thought this, I never thought it could be like creamy or rich or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to show. That's the message through the food. I'm trying to just show like food inspired through the earth that is got a nutritional profile, but it's also exciting. And food at the end of the day, like I think that's what we've got to do with making food wholesome and healthy, whatever. People eat with their eyes, whatever, like if you put some dry sal leaves on in a bowl, like people, I don't want to eat that.
And the smell as well. We brought in some herbs from the garden. It's like the smell was incredible.
So it's how we articulate that. And that's what I've spent the last 7 years on in terms of plates is I've learned that actually food's very psychological. And if we can create a genre of cooking that people in their mind they book and they don't even know that it's plant-based or think it is, but they've gone, I want to eat that. It sounds delicious. Boom. They're there already. And they're like, oh, at the end, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that it's all, I've eaten it all and I didn't even know. So like my job is to make that tomato dish as sexy as that scallop dish.
Yeah.
Or as exciting as that beef Wellington, right? That people so like nostalgically are driven towards. Like, how can I make my dishes more exciting and interesting than that? And that's the level that we work at. And, there's been lots of failures, but it's an evolution and it's a journey. And it's an exciting one.
I think something you said there, and probably a little bit off topic, is nostalgia and how much some of our food behaviours all start, and I can see you looking at me really intensely now, start so young and we don't realise it. And if I think of my journey, food was a reward. I got brought up, around not very much. Mum and dad always used to go shopping on a Monday because my dad had Mondays off from work. And that was the exciting day in the house because that was when there was something in the house that was more than just the absolute basics that we would get. And also anytime anything happened, we were rewarded through food. But it was never good food. Yeah, it was always a donut, a cake or something. Yeah.
It's like how many of you had birthday parties, when you were 6 or 7 at McDonald's for happenings, right? Yeah, I mean, when you actually look at it, it's crazy, right? So it's a programming through society that we've actually been susceptible to, and through, depending on how our parents brought us up, what we got put in our mouth first. Like if you think about it this way, from when you're born, if you never tried sugar until you were 10, imagine, right? Your palate would be completely different. If you tried raw, pure cacao, which is what chocolate's made of, but if you take a Snickers, for instance, it's like 6% cacao and the rest of it's just sugar and loads of rubbish. Our palates had that from like we were a kid. So when we have the purest thing, it's like, oh, that's disgusting. Actually, we need to not blame the ingredient, we need to blame ourselves. And it's about taking accountability as well and looking at things and going, okay, I understand that now, right? And obviously it depends where our parents were at. Like I remember my mum and dad, they were so busy and, sometimes you just throw things in the oven and, it depends if you're a single mother and it's not anybody's fault because we're not aware of it. And also, money's got a big part to play in it, right? But also I think with the food thing, is because I've looked at this and people go, oh, it's too expensive to eat like that. And I'm like, if you actually look how much a McDonald's is now or a KFC, you're talking about £8-9 or Domino's pizza.
It's not cheap to eat rubbish food anymore.
It's actually not the money, it's the education of what to do with the foods and how to cook it. Like, because we're all in this industry, we're in this bubble, we think everyone knows how to make a broccoli soup or whatever. They don't.
They don't know how to do it.
No idea. Because I can say, well,
it's scary. It's quite intimidating. What would you tell me to cook if I could get excited about vegetables at home that isn't intimidating?
I'll just jump in quickly, but when you said there, reset. You can reset your palate, can't you? You can. I'm finding that already.
Through fasting, you'll know that.
Yeah, you find yourself, wow, things taste different.
Oh, I didn't know I was addicted to that. Your brain goes,
yeah.
Oh, I want that. I want that thing that you've normally always, if you when you walk to work tomorrow, look at how many people go to Pret and get the coffee and carry on. Pret, go to coffee and carry on. Because they program themselves. I can't work unless I've had my coffee. No, you just haven't took accountability and gone, actually, I can work without the coffee and I'm not going to do it this week.
I'm so habitual about my food and whether it's treats or what I'm rewarding myself for, or I definitely mentally crave something before I've thought about why do I want that? And it's 100% emotional.
Yeah.
I'm such an emotional.
A lot of us are.
What can we
Eater.
do though? If I just think about, and they're going to answer your question about what they're going to change.
Definitely, I want a recipe.
But if you think about any workplace celebration, you walk around probably, if we were to walk around floors here or in our office, it's cake, it's sweets, etc. How do we change? That's what we need, you know, to be a game changer. We've got to change that culture that actually reward is sugar based. And so what can we do to kind of make things people kind of move away from that?
Yeah, I think it's so tough. And I think it's interesting when somebody sees you like eating, I don't know, a salad or a clean piece of, let's say, fish with lots of healthy ingredients around it. People are like, oh, you on a diet?
Yeah.
And again, it's a programming. No,
I'm treating myself.
This should be normal, right? So it's like, it's how we get to the mass market of like all the things that are around us, you know, like Greg's has to go, McDonald's has to go, like all these things have to be replaced. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, that beast is a big beast. And I don't know how that's going to be. I think us little independent businesses in our own sort of way have to just do our part. And if we can influence 10 people every week or whatever.
I think from our point, we are part of the high street. You know, all the buildings we work in, we're part of the high street. You know, for me, I think it's the educational piece again. I think it's great when we send all this stuff up, but what's even better is when we've got physical presence. It could be a chef, it could be somebody, but you're doing something. I love the idea of sharing food. You know, I'd love to see more sharing food where you come along as a chef there, but you're gonna have a table of 6 or 10, but you're gonna sit down and eat your food.
Yeah.
That's good because then you can talk through what you're having. So everyone's kind of going on the journey together. As you said, peer pressure is awful. You know, peer pressure or something like, oh, we're going to have that today, it's Friday. You know, then you break whatever you're doing. So I think, yeah, for me, I'd like to see more presence from chefs, especially in the workplace, just being around, doing demonstrations, whatever that looks like, you know, because they know what they're doing, you know, and they understand the food a bit more. And again, it creates a hive of activity, creates inspiration, you know, creates ideas. You can
it's that
share
connection
recipes.
between the customer and who's going to eat it and who's created it.
You're not hiding away.
I get the joy of, I mean, whether the chefs like it or not, but I get the joy of going into the kitchen and kind of being like, oh, what are you making? And I was tasting something they were cooking today. And yesterday I went in and I got handed like a little bit of fresh baked focaccia. It's like, I'll try a bit of that. I mean, honestly, like the joy I get from being able to kind of walk around and hear the creativity, but the more our teams can go out and the chefs can connect with our people and really tell them, why should they eat what's on that salad bar? What's gone into that dish? Why have they picked those beans over actually that it's a, 50% meat, 50% beans actually in a burger? We can do so much better. And that competing with the high street, getting people away from that quick and really quite poor quality food. Our people love a chicken katsu. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I could just campaign, don't eat katsu and sandwiches, go to the salad bar. So if I've got one challenge to the chef teams and for me to do for our people is to go, don't pick that fried chicken and chips. You are going to feel incredible if you have, all of these 30 plants from this salad bowl that we can create you. And that's the journey we're absolutely going on together.
But then I think it's also, you have to then take those foods that you love, like a chicken katsu or whatever, and it's with that buttery crumb. And you can't just go, oh, here's some beetroots and some carrots. You have to then
Take it off.
we've made a katsu dressing.
Yeah.
We've got this, you're giving them the thing that they want in their mind, but you're delivering them something different.
We did that with a
Which
Caesar
goes
salad.
back to psychological thing,
So we
right?
did a Caesar salad with a plain grilled chicken.
Or the chicken can be steamed.
And then they put the crumb chicken on it. I loved it. But at least it was a combination.
Or the crumb could be like lots of crispy quinoa on top of the
Yeah.
steamed chicken or whatever with a katsu sauce.
But I think but what you were saying there is it all goes down to cooking fresh and therefore what's going into the dish. And that's the bit that we don't realise quite often is if you go out other places, what you're actually eating. I think we had the conversation about turning over labels, etc. And therefore bread isn't something that should be feared if it's made properly.
Yeah.
Andy, I think that's probably something that you're quite passionate
Yeah,
about.
100%. Good bread's great for the gut. We know that. If it's made fresh, and it's a non-negotiable for us in our business that we're making some form of bread, because you take away all the stuff. If you look at a loaf of bread's got to be affordable for everyone. We know that. But if you look at that label, it's quite scary, and you're wondering what does that actually do to that product. But when you make it, it's 3 base ingredients, and then you add some fresh herbs or vegetables, different. So it's quite a straightforward thing. Fresh bread is the easiest thing in the world to make. And it's something as a business, that we are, I don't know how many bakers we've got now, but we've trained since last year, probably about 450, maybe more than that across the UK. So we're encouraging, and again, that creates interest. Mm-hmm. It creates a story behind it. Then it goes into local regional suppliers like Wild Farm. So again, it's a whole story there, right the way back to the source of the product to the customer gets it. So it's scary at first to make bread because people are, I might get it wrong, but just give it a go. And I think it's really important if we tell that story to the customer, then the chefs they're going to influence change. Yeah. And I think you have to, sometimes you talk about the cat, so I would love, and I don't think this is going to be controversial, but sometimes to make a difference, you have to make a difference. And you have to take something away. Now, you do, and you for change to happen, we could go down many, routes for this one, but to change to happen sometimes, you have to make a conscious decision. If we want this to happen, we agree as a team and then we move forward. Because what comes out of that can be wonderful. You can find new ideas, and like Kirk mentioned there about the steamed chicken with quinoa. Love that idea, by the way. So it's little things like that, not being scared of change.
And being brave.
And being brave. Yeah. Not being scared of the change.
Yeah, you got to go where it scares you. Yeah. You got to make the change where it feels, because we program to do a certain thing. We're like, but if we take that crispy chicken burger off, our client's going to disappear. Instead of going, actually, we're going to make something that's better than this chicken burger, and we're actually going to double our clients. Mm-hmm. And we might struggle at the start, but we're going to stick to our guns, and everyone is aligned with it. And we're going to make impact, and over the 5-year period, it's going to change the game. So it's just making that jump, and it's scary, right? It is scary, especially as a business. Yeah.
I mean, for us, we've talked about it for a long time, and it's very standard to go, let's have a sandwich lunch. Everybody knows what a sandwich lunch is. It's what, that's how the workplace operated. We just want to change that. We want to say the anti-sandwich lunch, just trust us. Tell us how many people you've got. Let our chefs create you an amazing menu that's going to be sustainable. It's going to be delicious. It's going to give you that sustained energy. It's going to be a talking point as well. Actually, if we can get our people and our clients going, wow, what is that? That smells fantastic. That tastes really different. And give them the stories behind the food. What an amazing break to stop talking about, all the projects and sort of stressful elements. And just act as people and say, we tasted a bit of that. That was delicious.
I think that's just all about utilising food to its ultimate potential. And I suppose probably the last bit that we were going to talk about today was the power of food as medicine, which I think is a really new conversation that some people have been practicing for a while, but actually I feel like people are talking about it now. And Kirk, you've got a really personal journey with food and being medicine for you. And I was just hoping you might be able to share that with a little bit of the listeners and what that's kind of meant for your journey over the last 10 years.
It's so powerful. I think we spoke before about chefs kind of cooking this beautiful food and then not really caring about themselves, and that was a real awakening moment for me when I became very, very sick, is that I've been put all this passion and energy, and I'm obsessed to be the best. So I would just I'd be in at 6 a.m, I'd get home at 2 a.m, I'd have a few Red Bulls, I'd eat a doner kebab at 2 a.m. or some chicken wings, being very honest now, and I'd go to bed. I'd wake up 4 or 5 hours later and it'd be straight. And I was working in a 2 Michelin star restaurant where I'm going to be honest, you weren't working with nice people. They were not nice. There was a lot of bullying going on. There was a lot of stress. So that in itself is really, really bad. And I just thought, this doesn't make sense. So I'm putting all this effort in for someone that I'm never even going to meet. And then I'm destroying myself. It doesn't make any sense. So when I had to stop working for 18 months and I moved back into my parents' house up north, I started to reverse the energy, and I put in the same passion and energy into myself. It's like Andy will know, in kitchens 10 years ago, the staff food used to be horrendous. Used to make spag bol one day, and then with the leftover mince you make shepherd's pie, and with the leftover mince you make lasagna. This is what used to, you get a tin of baked beans and some Warburton's bread. And when you look at that and you go, Jesus, no wonder. And for me, fast forwarding, Lyme disease, when I look at it now, was just the last trigger that was just Kirk, stop disrespecting me like this. I'm going to, I ain't going to keep working for you, an internal dialogue in my body that you can't keep treating yourself like this. And then that's when I started to like read about the gut. And this is 10 years ago. And I was like, wow, because I was like severely riddled with chronic pain, like everywhere. I used to wake up basically with a hangover every single day for years. And I stopped all alcohol then. Never drank anything. I used to wake up with a hangover. So that's when I started to look at the real importance of food. And yeah, it's so much, you know, it's the core of everything. And I think I think if I could say one thing to people that's powerful is like prevention is the best thing. And like, I don't think people realize how, like, if you don't have your health, you are nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You can have $65 billion in the bank account, but if you're ill, it don't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd have given me £10 million 7 years ago, and I was ill, like, I'd have just been like, I don't care, mate. Like, I want this to stop. I want to stop feeling so ill. So I think it's like putting the effort whilst if you still feel healthy now and you feel great, like just maybe go, okay, what can I change maybe that can add in another healthy habit? You know, we can't just live in, we've got to enjoy ourselves as well and do some things. Like I said, if you eat a burger now and again, it's fine. But I think just taking that effort for prevention and, going, okay, I'm going to stick and I'm going to go to the gym twice a week and I'm not, it's a non-negotiable.
Where do you find, so discipline is a word that you said probably a few times today, and that's something that's hard to come by for a lot of people. We live in a distracted world, everything is telling us not to be disciplined because nobody makes money if we're disciplined because we're not doing what they want us to do as consumers. How have you managed to cut through that and find and discipline and kind of really hold it?
I was just so sick of feeling ill. So it was like discipline's the only way. Like I was on, for 6 years, I was on high opioid medication because my pain was so bad. And when I started to read about what opioids were doing, I was like, oh my God, like I need to get off it, even though I just listened to my doctor and they said, oh, they're fine. They're not a very strong drug and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, so my discipline was like, I'm going to get off this. And I was like always scoping it down, changing things. I just was like, I was prepared to sacrifice anything to feel better. If you said to me, you can never go on holiday ever again for the rest of your life, but you can have you can feel better, I would have done it. Like I would sacrifice everything because all I wanted to do was feel better. So I think that's where the discipline comes from. I think now we live in a world now, there's so much medication. And I'm not saying all medication is bad, for a period of time, if someone's really struggling, it helps them. But I think that's what's masking us to go in to the deep-rooted journey within ourselves to heal, because they're plasters. And it's like, okay, I've got this now and I take this medication, that's me done. I always say this, when people get a diagnosis, they think it's almost like the lid's shut. And I always say reverse it, the lid's open.
Do you know what? I sat in a taxi.
Now's your time to find out and do the work.
I sat in a taxi a while ago with a taxi driver, and don't know how we got on the conversation of food, and he was 65 and being diagnosed diabetic, and his doctor's response was, I'm just going to give you some medicine, like some pills basically.
When it's reversible.
And he was just like, no, I'm not having that. And this is a proper chap that you would not expect, who got on the internet and genuinely did research, and he reversed his diabetes all through food. Yeah. But the easy option was to medicate and to kind of not consider actually the power of food. And I think that's the bit about food is medicine. Yeah. And I think we've got to help people understand potentially the power of it and how much of a difference it can make. Yeah, and I think we have to stop, it might sound harsh, but you have to take accountability. You have to go, all right, I'm not living like this anymore. I don't want to take that anymore. And I want to make change for myself. And at the end of the day, it comes down to us, like your parents, your best friends, they can help you. But like at the end of the day, it all comes down to you. That's a really powerful place to kind of end on, I suppose. In that it does come down to you. And Andy, I think we've had those conversations personally together before, that we are the only people that can make change in our lives.
Yeah, someone said to me, my regional trainer years ago when I was going traveling somewhere, said to me, you've got a lovely running machine, a lovely bike, you've got your house, you've got everything else, but you're moaning about paying money towards a gym to invest in your body. And it kind of hit, because people, you'll go out and buy, whatever you buy, but you won't spend the money to invest in yourself. And that hit, I might not have explained it properly there, but for me that meant, you're right, why do I need that? If I invest this money now here, it's going to give me a better future. And I think that kind of triggered a lot for me. I always think about it. Do I need to buy a pair of shoes, or can I spend that money on water and do a run, trainers or something to go running? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think very differently than I did 10 years ago. And I think the investment in yourself, you have to be selfish to yourself sometimes. You have to make time to do what you need to do. I know, Charlotte, you mentioned earlier. You have to make time to do it. You have to factor it into your day, because you're the most important person in this world. Even if you've got family, I get that and I understand that. But if you look after you, everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Well, there's that bit in the plane where they say you put your own life mask on before you help anybody else. And my old neighbour Bob said to me, what is it with all of us people? We MOT our cars every single year without fail, but we don't do that to ourselves. And nobody can drive the car. We have to drive the car, so therefore, why do we invest all of that in another object rather than actually ourselves?
I had to do that with my mental health, because I literally came to the point, different from the pain and from a health perspective, but actually it was my body stopped and I couldn't carry on because I was pushing through and putting myself last. So I masked it. I probably didn't understand it myself. So I didn't know all the things I know now. Nobody talked about it. I just thought it was a normal thing that at work that's how you feel. If you're going to be high performing, if you're going to work hard, you just push
Everyone
through.
must feel like this.
I did. I thought everybody was going off and having a cry in the toilets, or, not being able to sleep, or just kind of, let's have 10 coffees a day and you'll be fine. It's not a problem. Until my body stopped me, my mind and my body. I had to take that break. And it took a couple of years after, actually, for me really to learn that I had to put myself first. And I'm the only person that can say, I am going to do this. I'm going to invest in good food. I feel very privileged that I can go out and spend the money on really good quality ingredients. I can afford the gym. I can afford these things. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to go out for a run. We really can build movement and good food into our lives for not a lot of investment. But if you're lucky enough to be able to invest time, and it is selfish, but selfish in a really positive way, to say if I can be well long term, it's not that quick fix, because I think we're all taught, and it can be the negative side, to say what works for me right now in this very moment, what's going to make me feel different, energized right now. But we're not thinking about 10, 20, 30 years time. And all of us talking about this now is like, what am I investing in my future? It's not just what we eat today. It's how we're going to feel when we're 50, when we're 60, when we're 70. And that's a real privilege, I think.
So, Charlotte, you probably set up my last question really nicely there, is that we're all learning and we're all on journeys. And I suppose I'd love to know from all of you, what would you tell your younger self now is to be a non-negotiable for moving forward? So, Andy, what would you tell your younger self?
I think I'd tell myself to listen to my grandparents more. I lived with my grandparents for quite a while, and they ate really well. There was always good quality produce, small portions, but they grazed throughout the day. And they always said to me, just follow us, follow what we do. They were very slender, they were very healthy and fit. We're talking 40 or 5 years ago, but I wish I'd listened, because I think my diet over 20 years has been terrible. I don't think I eat three meals in a day at all. So I would tell myself, listen, find something you like and stake it. We talked about consistency a lot today, and I wish I'd been more consistent with my eating over the years, because it kind of, especially in kitchens, you don't stick to a plan. So I would tell myself just to, and be a bit more curious with food. I think, sometimes you stick to what you know, but I wish I'd been a bit more curious around the whole protein part, rather than just sticking to the food that, I thought was safe and healthy. So it's a bit of a boring answer, but eat like your ancestors, we say.
Yeah, I think you're not wrong there. And I think protein's a whole big conversation about the importance of it in later life as well. And while it might not be an essential now, what you do now is probably going to affect that as we grow older, as the older people in the room do. Charlotte, what about yourself?
I think for me, it really, when you pose this question to us, firstly, I think the environment wasn't ready for it. So when I was 18, which is a few years ago, the culture and the environment wasn't ready for me to prioritise my wellness. But if I could go back, sleep would be a huge thing for me. It's always been a problem, but I also didn't put a lot of effort into it. And I think for me, the discipline really has to come into sleep. And then valuing the exercise. I didn't think I could do it. I was scared of it. And I didn't prioritise it. but the joy I get from having the strength outside of work as well is really amazing. So not just having my identity purely rooted in the workplace, actually going into the gym and going, my identity has led to, you know, can I go up 5 kilos? You know, can I stick another plate on that bar? That's really empowering and really exciting. So I wish I'd have started that earlier.
That's pretty impressive. And I think definitely from a sleep hygiene perspective, we do not realise the impact of that. And I was listening to something the other day where actually how our sleep patterns work. And they were saying that shift workers have a shorter lifespan because of their sleep patterns. And I think that's just incredible that probably sleep is something that we all don't talk enough about. And maybe that's for another podcast. What about yourself, Kirk?
I think what I'd say to my younger self was, I think we spoke about this before, but I would definitely wish I'd have been more selfish. I wish I'd have made more decisions for myself rather than making decisions to make other people happy or just because I wanted to hang around with those people. You know, like, yeah, just be more selfish, put yourself first, do what's right for you, because actually, I think that's the kindest thing you can do to the people around you, because if you don't, then you're unhappy and then that's a domino effect to them. So actually, when we think about selfishness, it's not actually selfish. If you put yourself first, you're a better person for the people you love. So it's actually the kindest thing you could probably do. So yeah, I would have been way more selfish. Put my health first, obviously, biggest lesson I've ever learned in my life. Put my health first before everything else, and that's not just food, that's around the people that you are around, your circle, friends and family, and be more strong-minded.
I think that's really powerful, and I think the whole bit is everybody's talked about prioritising themselves and taking a different alternative view of the word selfish. But to your point earlier, if you don't look after yourself now, you know, you're not going to be well enough to look after anybody in the future. So we need to kind of make sure we're prioritising as well.
But by doing that, what you actually do is give everyone else permission to look after themselves.
Exactly.
So I think you turn it on your head, and what you talked about leading your teams and saying this is a non-negotiable for us in Plates, that this is how we're going to run our service. By you doing that and setting it from the top, by me taking care of myself and saying, actually, I'm going to go to the gym. I lead the way for my team to say, can I go to the gym? Absolutely, please do. Go home at a reasonable time. Let's go to lunch together. So actually, by us looking after ourselves, giving that permission to everybody else to do it is what's going to make the culture completely different.
So there we have it. We've all just got to go and leave this room today, set the example. We've got green juice and green food waiting for us to make sure we're all energised. But I just want to say thank you so much. You've been a really interesting guest to have, and it's been really fantastic listening to some of your stories and your personal kind of shared experiences. So thank you. And if you want to hear from more, please do tune in to FYI, the Backstory podcast.